If you think you've heard every heist story, every prison break, every impossible crime, you haven't heard this one. Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and drop a comment telling me if you could pull off what you're about to hear. Because this isn't just a crime story. This is the blueprint to destroy everything. The wind cuts like a blade across the Colorado plains, howling through the razor wire that crowns the concrete fortress rising from the desert floor. ADX Florence. The Alcatraz of the Rockies. America's only Supermax prison. Inside these walls, the world's most dangerous men exist in a state designed to break the human spirit, 23 hours a day in a 7 by 12-foot concrete box. No human contact. No windows. No hope. Cell 336 sits in the deepest corridor of H Unit, reserved for prisoners so dangerous that even other inmates fear their names. For 12 years, Victor Constantine has occupied this cell. 12 years of silence. 12 years of fluorescent lights that never dim. 12 years of meals pushed through a slot by guards who never speak to him. Victor Constantine, former Russian economist, convicted cyber terrorist, serving 8 consecutive life sentences for crimes that nearly toppled the European banking system in 2013. But Victor has a secret the FBI has spent over a decade trying to extract. Before his capture, Victor created something he called the Cascade, a mathematical algorithm so devastating, so precise, that it could systematically dismantle an entire nation's economy in 96 hours. He never wrote it down. Every encryption key, every sequence, every exploit lives solely in his mind. The FBI tried everything: plea deals, torture masked as enhanced interrogation, even bringing in his dying mother. Victor smiled through it all and said nothing. 3,000 miles away, in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, Maya Chen stares at her laptop screen, her fingers trembling over the keyboard. She's looking at something that shouldn't exist, something that proves Victor Constantine wasn't lying. Maya used to work for the NSA, one of their best cryptographers, until she discovered her own government was using her work to surveil innocent civilians. She walked away 2 years ago, but her security clearance gave her access to files most people don't even know exist. The file is labeled Constantine Verification Analysis. Inside are fragments of code recovered from Victor's apartment in Moscow, mathematical proofs scribbled on napkins, intercepted emails written in a cipher so complex it took the NSA's supercomputers 4 years to crack even 30% of it. And what they found terrified them. Victor wasn't bluffing. The cascade is real. And according to Maya's analysis, someone is already trying to rebuild it. She picks up her phone, her heart hammering against her ribs. The number she dials belongs to a man she swore she'd never contact again. Rashid Al-Zarani. Master manipulator. Social engineer. The man who once talked his way into the Pentagon using nothing but a fake ID and confidence. He's also the only person who might be crazy enough to help her with what she's planning. I need to break into ADX Florence, Maya says when Rashid answers. There's a long pause. Then Rashid laughs, a low, dangerous sound. You've finally lost your mind. Victor Constantine has something in his head that could change everything. And I think someone else is going after it. We need to get to him first. Even if we could get inside, which we can't, Victor's been in solitary for 12 years. His mind is probably... That's why we need Elena. Another pause. Longer this time. Victor's daughter? You really have lost your mind. She hates him. She's also a demolitions expert who spent 3 years planning to break her father out before she gave up. She has blueprints, guard rotations, everything. And I have leverage. Rashid exhales slowly. What kind of leverage? The kind that proves her father might have been set up. The kind that shows the real terrorists are still out there, still active, and about to use the cascade on a target that will make 2013 look like a practice run. In Florence, Colorado, the midnight shift change occurs with mechanical precision. Guards move through corridors with keys that weigh 3 pounds each, opening and closing steel doors that could withstand rocket fire. In cell 336, Victor Constantine sits cross-legged on his concrete bed, eyes closed, lips moving silently. To the guards watching through the camera feed, he appears to be praying. But Victor isn't praying. He's reciting. Numbers, sequences, coordinates. The cascade, running through his mind like a symphony only he can hear. He's been waiting for 12 years. Waiting for someone smart enough to find him. Brave enough to reach him. Desperate enough to use what he knows. His lips curl into the ghost of a smile. They're coming. He can feel it. Back in Brooklyn, Maya receives an encrypted message. It's from James Morrison, former corrections officer at ADX Florence, the man who walked away from his job 6 months ago after witnessing something that shattered his faith in the system. The message contains 3 attachments: architectural schematics of each unit, a duty roster showing a 2-minute gap in camera coverage during meal delivery, and a photograph. Maya opens the photograph, and her blood runs cold. It shows cell 336. But Victor isn't alone in the frame. Standing in the corridor outside his cell, partially obscured by shadow, is a figure in a guard's uniform. The figure is holding something, passing it through the meal slot. Maya zooms in, enhancing the image until she can make out what's being exchanged. It's a piece of paper. And on that paper, she can just barely read 2 words written in Victor's handwriting. They're here. 3 days after Maya sees the photograph, 5 people gather in an abandoned grain silo 40 miles outside Denver. The structure rises like a rusted sentinel from the prairie, its walls pocked with bullet holes from target practice by local kids who don't know they're standing on top of what will soon become the staging ground for the most audacious prison break in American history. Maya arrives first, her Honda Civic looking painfully out of place against the desolate landscape. She's carrying a military-grade laptop and 3 external hard drives containing everything she's compiled on Victor Constantine, the Cascade, and the security systems at ADX Florence. Her hands haven't stopped shaking since she saw that photograph. Someone inside the prison is communicating with Victor. Which means whatever she thought she knew about this situation, she was wrong. Rashid arrives second, stepping out of a black SUV wearing a suit that costs more than most people's monthly rent. He's 42, Saudi-born, Princeton-educated, and has a smile that could convince you to hand over your life savings while thanking him for the privilege. He's also wanted in 7 countries for fraud, identity theft, and once convincing an entire Swiss bank that he was a member of their board of directors for 3 weeks before disappearing with $40 million. "This better be worth it, Maya," he says, lighting a cigarette. "I was in Monaco. Do you know how hard it is to leave Monaco in the middle of summer?" "Victor's daughter is coming," Maya replies. "And she's bringing the blueprints." Elena Volkov arrives 20 minutes later on a Ducati motorcycle, her helmet hiding a face that shares Victor's sharp cheekbones and ice blue eyes. She's 34, covered in tattoos that tell the story of a life spent running from her father's shadow. She was 17 when Victor was arrested, a freshman at MIT studying engineering. She dropped out the day his verdict was announced and spent the next decade learning everything she could about explosives, structural engineering, and prison security. Not to free him. To understand how they could hold a man she both loved and hated behind walls thick enough to survive a nuclear blast. She pulls off her helmet, her expression hard. "You said you have proof he was framed." Maya nods, opening her laptop. The 2013 attack on the European Central Bank. Victor was convicted of orchestrating it, but the prosecution's timeline never made sense. He was in Prague when the first breach occurred, but flight records show he couldn't have physically accessed the servers in Frankfurt. Someone else initiated the cascade. Victor just took the fall. Elena's jaw tightens. Why would he do that? Because whoever really did it had leverage. They threatened someone Victor cared about. He didn't care about anyone except his equations and his ego. He cared about you, Elena. The real attackers threatened to kill you if he didn't confess. And they're still out there. Before Elena can respond, headlights cut through the darkness. A white pickup truck rolls to a stop, and James Morrison steps out. He's 51, gray-haired, with the 1,000-yard stare of a man who's seen too much. He worked at ADX Florence for 18 years, rising to senior corrections officer before he submitted his resignation with no explanation and disappeared. Maya found him living in a trailer park in New Mexico, drinking himself into oblivion every night. "I'm only here because you said lives are at stake," James says, his voice rough. But you need to understand something. What you're planning is impossible. ADX Florence isn't just a prison. It's a machine designed by the best security experts in the world. Motion sensors in every corridor. Pressure plates under every floor tile. Laser grids in the ventilation systems. Attack dogs trained to kill on command. Even if you could somehow get inside, which you can't, you'd never make it to H Unit. And even if you did, you'd never get Victor out of cell 336. That's why we're not breaking him out, Maya says quietly. Everyone turns to stare at her. We're breaking in to extract what's in his head. We have 48 hours to get inside, interface with Victor, download the cascade, and get out before the people who framed him use it to collapse an entire nation's economy. Rashid laughs. That's your plan? Walk into the most secure prison on Earth, have a chat with a man who's been in solitary confinement for 12 years, and hope his brain hasn't turned to mush. That's where she comes in, Maya says, gesturing to the fifth member of their team, who's been standing in the shadows this entire time. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo steps into the light. She's a neuropsychologist from Johns Hopkins, one of the world's leading experts on isolation trauma and memory retention. She's also Victor's former therapist, the only person he spoke to during his first 3 years at ADX before he went completely silent. Victor's mind is intact, Sarah says, her Nigerian accent precise. I reviewed his psychological evaluations. He's been using isolation to sharpen his mental processes, not deteriorate them. He's been waiting for this. Preparing for it. James shakes his head. You're all insane. Even if everything you're saying is true, you'd need someone inside. Someone with access codes, clearance levels, someone who knows the guard rotations and blind spots. We have someone, Maya says. She pulls up the photograph on her laptop, the one showing the figure passing paper to Victor. This was taken 6 days ago during the midnight shift. Whoever this is, they're already communicating with Victor. And according to the metadata, the camera that captured this image was offline for exactly 90 seconds. Someone disabled it deliberately. Elena leans closer, studying the image. Can you identify them? Not from this angle. But James can. He knows every guard at that facility. James stares at the screen, his face going pale. That's impossible. You know who it is. I know who it was. Officer Daniel Chin. But he's dead. He died 4 months ago. Car accident on Highway 50. The temperature in the silo seems to drop 10 degrees. Rashid crushes his cigarette under his shoe. So either we're looking at a ghost, or someone faked a federal corrections officer's death and has been impersonating him for 4 months. Which means someone else is already executing a plan, Sarah says. Someone with resources, inside access, and a reason to want the cascade. Maya closes her laptop. We have 2 options. Walk away and hope whoever's behind this doesn't succeed. Or we go in first, extract what Victor knows, and stop them before they can use it. Elena looks at each of them in turn. My father destroyed lives. Ruined economies. But if what you're saying is true, if he was protecting me, then I owe him the truth. I'm in. James runs a hand through his gray hair. I need a drink. Or 10. But yeah, I'm in. Rashid grins. I've always wanted to add federal prison to my resume. Count me in. Sarah nods once. Someone needs to make sure Victor stays sane enough to remember. That's me. Maya feels the weight of what they're about to do settle over her like a burial shroud. Then we move in 72 hours. I need everything you know about guard protocols. Elena, start working on entry points. Rashid, we need cover identities that will hold up to federal background checks. Sarah, prepare a cognitive interview protocol. And everyone, understand this. If we get caught, we're not walking out of ADX Florence. Ever. They spend the next 6 hours planning until the sun rises over the Colorado plains and reality crashes back in. Maya is packing up her equipment when her phone buzzes. A known number. She answers. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice, distorted by a modulator, speaking in Russian-accented English. Maya Chin. Former NSA cryptographer. You're looking for Victor Constantine. So, walk away. Or we'll make sure you join him in a cell of your own. The line goes dead. Maya's hands are shaking again, but this time, it's not from fear. It's from certainty. They're not just planning a prison break anymore. They're walking into a trap. The night they infiltrate ADX Florence, the temperature drops to 18 degrees and the stars disappear behind clouds thick as concrete. Maya sits in the back of a food service truck, her heart hammering so hard she's certain the others can hear it. The truck smells like industrial detergent and frozen vegetables, a smell she knows will haunt her nightmares for the rest of her life, however long that might be. Rashid is driving, wearing the uniform of a contracted food service employee, complete with a name badge that reads, Marcus Webb, and a security clearance that cost them $50,000 to forge. The clearance is good enough to pass the first 2 checkpoints. After that, they're relying on James's knowledge of a 12-minute window when the kitchen loading bay cameras cycle through a system reboot, a vulnerability that's existed for 3 years and that the prison administration still hasn't fixed. Elena is in a second vehicle following 200 yards behind, a maintenance van carrying equipment that's supposed to be for repairing the H-unit ventilation system. Sarah sits beside Maya, reviewing her notes one final time, her lips moving silently as she memorizes the exact sequence of questions designed to extract coherent information from a man who hasn't had a real conversation in over a decade. First checkpoint in 30 seconds, Rashid says through the concealed earpiece they're all wearing. His voice is steady, confident. This is what he does. Convincing people to believe impossible things. The truck slows. Maya can hear voices outside, guards conducting their standard inspection. A flashlight beam cuts through the gap beneath the truck's rear door. Her hand finds the grip of the taser hidden in her jacket pocket, not that it would do any good against armed federal corrections officers, but the weight of it provides an illusion of control. Good evening, officer, Rashid says, his accent flawless Middle American. Running behind schedule tonight. Got a refrigeration unit acting up at the main kitchen. ID and manifest. Papers rustle. Seconds stretch into eternities. You're new, the guard says. It's not a question. Started 2 weeks ago. Still learning the routes. Is there a problem? Another pause. Maya can feel sweat running down her spine despite the cold. No problem. But next time, radio ahead when you're running late. Makes everyone's job easier. Absolutely, officer. Won't happen again. The truck lurches forward. They're through checkpoint 1. James's voice crackles in Maya's ear. Second checkpoint in 90 seconds. They'll do a thermal scan of the cargo area. Stay absolutely still. Don't even breathe heavy. The scanner reads heat signatures and movement. Maya and Sarah freeze, controlling their breathing, making themselves as small and still as possible behind the crates of frozen food. Maya can hear the hum of the thermal imaging equipment, can imagine the guard watching their heat signatures on a screen, looking for anything unusual. 2 warm bodies in a truck full of frozen goods would definitely qualify as unusual. But Rashid anticipated this. The crates they're hiding behind are lined with thermal reflective material, the same stuff used in space blankets, diffusing their heat signatures into ambient background noise. It cost them another $20,000. Maya prays it works. 15 seconds. 20. 30. You're clear, a different guard's voice says. Bay door opens in 5. They're in. The loading bay is exactly as James described it. A concrete cavern lit by sodium lights that turn everything the color of old bruises. 2 guards stand by the entrance to the kitchen corridor, but they're focused on their phones, bored by the routine of another midnight delivery. Rashid backs the truck up to the loading platform with practiced precision. Maya and Sarah have exactly 11 minutes before the cameras come back online. They slip out the back, moving like shadows in their black tactical gear. Elena's van arrives 60 seconds later. She's already in maintenance coveralls, carrying a toolbox that actually contains lockpicking equipment, electronic bypass devices, and a shaped charge small enough to fit in a coffee cup but powerful enough to blow through 6 inches of reinforced steel. James is waiting in the kitchen corridor, exactly where he said he'd be. He's wearing a guard's uniform that he swore he burned when he left ADX Florence, but apparently some things are too valuable to destroy. His face is pale, his hands shaking slightly. This isn't his world anymore, and being back inside these walls is clearly tearing him apart. H-Unit is 3 corridors down, then through 2 security doors that require biometric scans. I can get you past the first door using my old credentials, but the second requires a current officer's palm print and retinal scan. That's where we have a problem. Not anymore, Elena says. She pulls out a slim device that looks like a smartphone. Biometric duplicator. I lifted Officer Chen's palm print from his locker and his retinal scan from the security database. If the system hasn't been updated in the last 4 months, we're golden. And if it has been updated? Sir asks. Then alarms sound, every door in the facility locks down, and we have approximately 45 seconds before a tactical response team fills this corridor with enough bullets to turn us into abstract art. They move through the prison like ghosts, using James's knowledge of camera blind spots and guard patrol patterns. The deeper they go, the more oppressive the silence becomes. This isn't the silence of an empty building. It's the silence of hundreds of men locked in concrete boxes, their screams and pleas and prayers absorbed by walls designed to erase the very concept of sound. They reach the first security door. James swipes his credentials. The light turns green. They're through. The second door looms ahead, a slab of steel equipped with enough security technology to guard a nuclear silo. Elena positions the biometric duplicator against the palm scanner, her hands steady despite the impossibility of what they're attempting. The device emits a soft hum. Green light bathes her face. The door opens. H-Unit corridor stretches before them, a nightmare of concrete and steel and fluorescent lighting that never dims. Cell after cell after cell, each one containing a human being society has decided must be erased from existence. Maya can feel the weight of all that suffering pressing down on her, making it hard to breathe. Cell 336 is at the end of the corridor. Through the observation window, Maya can see Victor Constantine. He's sitting cross-legged on his bed, exactly as he was in the photograph. But he's not alone. Standing outside his cell is a figure in a guard's uniform. Officer Daniel Chin. Or whoever's wearing his face. The figure turns, and Maya's blood turns to ice. Because she recognizes that face. Not from ADX Florence personnel files. From NSA surveillance photos. From classified briefings about international cyber-terrorist networks. The man wearing Officer Chen's uniform is Alexei Volkov. Victor's brother. Elena's uncle. The man who actually orchestrated the 2013 attack on the European Central Bank. The man Victor took the fall for to protect his daughter. The man who's supposed to be dead, killed in a drone strike in Syria 4 years ago. Alexei smiles. Hello, Maya. Thank you for bringing my niece. This reunion is long overdue. He raises his hand. In it is a device no larger than a car key fob. One button press, and every door in H-Unit locks permanently. You'll die here, slowly, in cells next to the monsters you came to save. Or, you can listen to my proposal. Elena steps forward, her voice shaking with rage. You're the reason my father's been rotting in here. You're the reason he confessed to crimes he didn't commit. Your father confessed because I told him I'd cut pieces off you and mail them to him if he didn't. And he believed me because family means everything to Victor. Unlike you, dear niece, who abandoned him the moment he was arrested. What do you want? Maya demands. Alexei's smile widens. The same thing you do. The cascade. Victor created it, but I perfected it. And tonight, with or without your cooperation, I'm going to use it to collapse the United States economy. Stock markets, banking systems, cryptocurrency exchanges, all of it. 96 hours of carefully orchestrated chaos that will transfer approximately $4 trillion into accounts I control before anyone even realizes what's happening. Victor will never help you, Sarah says. Victor doesn't have a choice. You see, I've been visiting him for 4 months, slowly, carefully, extracting pieces of the cascade from his fractured mind. I'm 90% of the way there. But there's one final piece, one encryption key he won't give me. That's where you come in, Dr. Okonkwo. You're going to help me break through his final resistance. And Elena, my dear, you're going to watch your father betray his country one last time, or I press this button and you all die screaming. James moves fast for a man his age, pulling his service weapon and aiming it at Alexei's head. Drop the device. Now. Alexei doesn't flinch. Shoot me and my finger spasms. The button gets pressed anyway. We all lose. A standoff. 5 people in a prison corridor, surrounded by the most dangerous criminals in America, with the fate of the global economy hanging on a madman's thumb. Then Victor speaks for the first time in 12 years. His voice is rough, damaged by disuse, but the intelligence behind it cuts like a razor. Alexei, brother, you've made a critical error in your calculations. Through the cell window, Victor stands slowly. His movements are stiff, painful, but his eyes are sharp and utterly lucid. You assumed I've been deteriorating in here. You assumed isolation broke me. But I've spent 12 years doing something you could never do. I've been improving the cascade. And the version in my head now? It doesn't just collapse economies. It has a kill switch. One sequence of code that renders the entire algorithm useless. And I just gave that sequence to Dr. Okonkwo. Sarah's eyes widen in understanding. During Victor's seemingly random rambling when they first arrived, he'd been reciting numbers. She'd memorized them, thinking they were just symptoms of his isolation. But they weren't random at all. Alexei's smile falters. You're bluffing. Am I? Press your button, brother. Lock us all in here. See what happens when Maya sends that kill switch sequence to every intelligence agency in the world. See how long you survive when the CIA realizes you're alive and what you've been planning. The standoff stretches. Seconds. Minutes. Then Alexei laughs, a sound devoid of humanity. Clever, Victor. You always were the smarter one. But you've forgotten something important. He presses the button anyway. Alarms shriek. Steel doors slam shut throughout H unit. But Alexei doesn't lock them in. He unlocks every cell in the corridor. 23 of America's most dangerous prisoners, men who've spent years in isolation, men with nothing left to lose, pour into the corridor like a human flood of violence and madness. And Alexei disappears into the chaos, leaving them to survive or die in the hell he's created. In the screaming darkness of H unit, as guards flood in with automatic weapons and prisoners attack anything that moves, Maya makes a choice that will haunt her forever. She reaches through the meal slot of cell 336, takes Victor's hand, and downloads the Cascade's kill switch onto a flash drive Sarah passes her. Then they run, fighting through the riot, leaving Victor behind in his cell, watching them escape with eyes that might be relieved or might be calculating his next move. They make it out. Barely. Alexei vanishes, but 3 weeks later, a body matching his description washes up in the Black Sea. The kill switch works. The Cascade is neutralized. But Maya can't sleep anymore, because she knows the truth. Victor gave them exactly what he wanted them to have. And somewhere in that code is something else, something she hasn't found yet, something Victor planted 12 years ago and has been waiting patiently for someone to activate. She destroyed one apocalypse. But she might have just armed another. And in cell 336, Victor Constantine sits in silence, smiling, counting down to a day only he can see coming.